Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Dwivedi. Let's begin our session of today with corporate social responsibility. A corporate social responsibility in very common parlance is known as the responsibility of the private sector towards society from which they are making profit. And this is very important from the perspective of prelims, the important sections, mains, everything, specifically from the perspective of GS Mains Paper 3. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind that the topics, they span across so many subjects. Now, we cannot have a proper demarcation, a very clear-cut demarcation, which topic is very oriented to what paper. But one thing we can know that certain topics which span across many papers are very important. For example, this is important from the perspective of GS Mains Paper 4 as well. Ethics, right? 3 and 4, we can say. Okay, and maybe 2 as well. Why? Because polity, private sector is a very big part of polity. So just keep in mind about that. Okay, these are the many topics that we are going to discuss. Let's start with the news. So the news is not very happy for our economy because social spending by companies have come down or plunged by a sharp 64.24%, and that is in the pandemic year of 2020 and 2021. Contributions towards corporate social responsibility has slumped to rupees 8,828 crore, and the number of companies which are engaged in corporate social responsibility activities, they dropped by about 93% on an annualized basis at 1,619 in the year 2020-21. Now, an economy which is already starved by funds, specifically the areas in which a lot of investment is needed. That is why it's important to understand why corporate social responsibility has been mandated by the law in India. So we will talk about that as well. Reliance Industries with an enhanced rupees 922 crore contributed in 2020-21. It remained at the first, it comes at the first position this year. And Tata Consultancy Services, which is the second largest spender, it has come to rupees 674 crore. And the thing is that state-run Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, ONGC, it has went out of the top 10. It's no longer in the top 10 of the companies which are doing extremely well in corporate social responsibility. The combined expenditure of state-run firms in the year 2021 was just 6% as compared to the private sector, which was 94%. So you can see how important private sectors are specifically to achieving our sustainable development goals. We have to achieve sustainable development goals, and private sector is contributing towards the welfare in education, infrastructure, clean energy, green energy, good life on land, life in ocean. So we have to understand that corporate social responsibility coming down is a threat to sustainable development goals as well. If we talk about the history begins from 2007 when adoption of Inclusive Growth 11th 5-year plan, corporate social responsibility, although it was mandated after a very long period of time, India became the first ever country to have a law which commanded immense responsibility towards having corporate social responsibility, in the sense that there was a statute which supported the voluntary contribution and mandated it. India became the first country, remember this preliminary factor. Then in 2009, Voluntary Guidelines on Corporate Social Responsibility 2009 was launched, in which 9 important responsibilities were chalked out, many ranges. And in 2010, Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance, in its 21st report on Companies Bill, it asked for a statute to bring in a law that can mandate corporate social responsibility. So it was from 2010 when importance of the private sector was recognized in giving back to the society. In 2010, National Voluntary Guidelines on Social, Environmental, Economic Responsibilities, Business of 2011 came into being. And then in the year 2014, mandatory provision of CSR under Section 135 of the Companies Act 2013 was put down. So this is very important, and remember that the year from which it began was 2014, 1st of April. Okay, so these are certain preliminary facts which are very, very important from the perspective of the examination. Now, if we talk about these all things we have discussed, the importance of corporate social responsibility was mandated by the Parliamentary Standing Committee report on finance. Now, under which section of what act? Section 135, clause 4 of the Companies Act of 2013. Okay, and the role in section 135, clause 1, it was then to make a statutory disclosure of CSR in its annual report of the board. This was mandated by section 135, clause 1. Then rule 9 of the Companies Act, Corporate Social Responsibility, it mandated the format. What should be the format when we talk about corporate social responsibility disclosure? Okay, every company registered under the Companies Act of 2013 and any other previous company law qualifying following conditions. Okay, so these were the conditions. What companies have been told to give back to the society or fulfill its role under CSR. Having a net worth of rupees 500 crore or more. Net worth means assets minus liability. Okay, of any person or corporation. Assets minus liabilities. Then having a turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more. Okay, turnover plus having a net profit of rupees 5 crore or more during a financial year. Net profit is the revenue minus whatever expenditure was there, even including tax expenses. So tell me in the comment segment, what do you mean by the term turnover? Quickly, let's move forward and talk about our next set of important things that we have to discuss. What is the entire issue? Why the corporate social responsibility funds have plummeted? Very important for us to understand, because first of all, it was in the COVID pandemic year when the investments and the profits of companies, they suffered a lot. Because many industries were contact intensive. Many companies were such that because of the lockdown, the supply chains were distorted. But let's see, most of the designated funds, they are parked in the banks, a bank account for future use. Okay, there was also one mandate. If any unspent amount of corporate social responsibility is still in the bank or not spent in that year, then it can be saved for the next 3 years. It can be spent in the next 3 years. Also, because of the spread of COVID-19 in 2020-21, as I told you, that because of that as well, many funds were jammed, because although it's a law, there is a law, totally understandable. But if the profits are not matching the mandate of the law, how can they be spent? CSR compliances are very cumbersome, because now the government has come out with certain rules which make it mandatory for certain entities who are serving as third parties, and serving as third parties, they have been dictated by the amendments made in January 2021 in the CSR rules to register themselves. So that because of the cumbersome process, it might have happened that it ill impacted the spending of CSR. Okay, and also many companies are still registering. The process is still ongoing. So we are not very sure about the more clear picture, because the registration, as on whatever observations have been made, are as on September 30, 2021. Okay, so these might be some of the issues. Now, the education, this is as of 2020. So the education sector has received the maximum funding, 38% of the total, with respect to corporate social responsibility. Maximum funding education sector as of 2020, followed by hunger, poverty and healthcare. Then comes environmental sustainability, which is 12%. Then rural development, programs such as technology incubators, sports, armed forces inequality reduction, they saw negligible spend. So most of these sectors are intertwined with our sustainable development goal. So as we know that private sector is working in tandem with the government spending as well. So that is why it is very important that investment in the private sector, they continue to flow. That is why in budget, corporate tax was slashed down. Why? For the income to trickle down. Okay, let's move forward and talk about the implications. First, it might happen not in the short run, but in the medium run, short run and medium run, both. Investments might be impacted in certain sectors such as education, infrastructure. Government might have to play a bigger role. Then for MSMEs, in MSMEs also, corporate social responsibilities have done a lot of hand holding, specifically in the pandemic time. This will also get impacted. If we talk about privatization, now the government is moving towards privatization. It is trying to make the economy as profit oriented as possible, but not at all ignoring welfare. So privatization up to some extent might also get impacted because of the lack of investment in certain areas. Then sustainable development goals, as I have already told you that so many facets of corporate social responsibility are impacting our sustainable development goals as well. So what about those? Those will also get impacted. And the environment, as the economy is trying to get back on the track, more and more companies will try to make their companies stand on their feet by exploiting environment. It might happen. And investment in clean energy might also get impacted. So that will have an impact on environment as well. Let's move forward and talk about our conclusion. Now, first, we need to have a bigger policy role. Government needs to fill in whatever the gaps have been left by corporate social responsibilities plunging down. And a corporate company's CSR projects, they should typically be divided in 3 theaters of practice. First, we should focus on philanthropy, which is sustainable in nature. Okay, philanthropy, which is sustainable in nature, that means charity that is built on a sustainable model. Not charity shouldn't be done in such a manner that it's just for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It should be for a prolonged period of time. Improving operational effectiveness, and because of the registration of third parties, suppose there is this company A and it wants to spend in education sector B. There is a third party by the name of C. Because now I am giving funds to this third party, it should be so operationally effective that whatever funds I am making to this party should go effectively to education sector. So for this, the government had done some amendments in the corporate social responsibility rules in 2021. So this will be achieved. The second point will be achieved through this itself. Then comes transforming the business model. The business, okay, I have a corporate social responsibility, I know that. But it doesn't mean that I will exploit the nature, exploit the society in such a manner that I can justify by saying that, oh, I have corporate social responsibility, so I am justified, these actions are justified which I am doing right now by exploiting the environment or the society. Because whenever I am doing so, it is not helping, it's not charity. It is just making up for whatever losses I have created for the society, right? Okay, now let's move towards our question. Look at this question and practice it in 250 words. What is the significance of corporate social responsibility in building a post-pandemic India? Critically analyze the issue responsible for plunging of CSR in the previous year. Okay, so that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.